And I'm sure you've heard me say that it's not possible to stop thoughts. But actually, that's not entirely accurate, because it is possible to stop thoughts, and it's quite easy to experience that. You only have to get a fright or sneeze, and for a moment there are no thoughts. The thoughts stop, and actually, I think it's important to know that thoughts are individual, that they're not actually connected together. Thoughts are individual, The core, one occurs, next one occurs. It's very hard to do this on the screen, by the way, because your hands are going in the wrong way. Anyway, so, the thoughts themselves are individual, and there's gaps between them. And so when you get a fright, you see, you're left with the gap. Do you understand? When you get a fright, there's just a gap. There's no thought there. Normally, like, it's thought, next thought comes, next thought comes, and so on and so forth. But when you get a fright, like, it's thought comes, and next thing, there's a gap. Okay. So, and in that gap, actually, it isn't that there's nothing. There's actually awareness in that gap. Like when you sneeze, you don't disappear. Your thoughts stop. That's an important discovery, by the way. So, there are methods that you can use, you can train in, that actually make that gap quite large, very, very large. And the only problem is that sooner or later, the thoughts start up again. That's the only problem. Now, it can be nice to have just a very kind of, chilled out, thought-free world, but it doesn't work like that. And the Buddha himself actually trained in these methods of having a large gap. But he was dissatisfied. I often think of him as a teenager. He was dissatisfied. It wasn't good enough, and he was dissatisfied. There was no permanent release from the tyranny of thinking, and so that leads the question then: what actually are thoughts? What are they? Like I always say, like, we all have these thoughts, but have you ever wondered, like, what the heck actually is it? And these thoughts, they bring happiness and suffering. So what are they? So this is an explanation. Is that in the very first instance, there's simply an appearance in your mind. Like, for example, when there's a sound. It could be any sound. So in the first instance, there's just the sound. But then very, very quickly, it's said to be within the 60th of a second. Very, very quickly, thinking happens. You are trying to figure out, what is that? You're trying to place this, you're trying to figure out, what is that, And basically, when you look at it, you discover, actually, you're a little bit on edge. Do you know? You're a little bit kind of, It's my best explanation. You're a little bit on edge, And so you're trying to work out, what's the best plan of action? When you hear that sound, stupid sound, what's the best plan of action? A lot of the time it is, just forget it, it's not important. But actually you can see that there are these two stages. In the first one, there's just like what I'm calling a mental event. And in the second one, then there is this thinking, you know. But because I think myself, because it's not been common for us to look at this, we just have the one word to describe both of these. So we talk about the initial mental event as a thought, and we talk about this analysis part as thought, but they're actually two distinct, separate things. And one of the things you will notice is that the thought part is always a past tense. Thought, past tense of to think, which I know Dennis will agree with. That it's an attempt to gauge what has happened, and it's rooted in insecurity, and it's an expression of our karma, of our conditioning. That aspect of thought is an expression of our karma. This is why, different people can like or dislike the exact same thing because of karma and conditioning. So when the mental event occurs, it's being evaluated, it's being seen, it's being viewed in terms of our karma, of our conditioning. Now, the interesting thing is that the thought part is itself a mental event that's happening now about something that has happened. So the thoughts themselves are mental events. So, what do we do with this information? By the way, this is not belief. This is something to be looked at and tried by yourself. It's not a position. It's something to be analysed. So basically, what you do with this information is you rest. Now you see, the resting is the antidote to the insecurity. So you rest. Rest in a safe space, which is where you are right now. So when you're no longer on edge, the mental events are allowed to happen without needing to react to them. So that's what we do. Just rest. So when I say rest, it doesn't mean relax, actually. Rest is just simply doing nothing. just resting. And you're resting, but mental events are going to be there all the time. You might notice that they appear and yet they're empty. They appear and dissolve. That's their nature. And as you're sitting here, it's inevitable that there will be reactions towards these mental events. But if you just rest here, you notice that eventually those reactions too, they eventually dissolve. So what we're experiencing is our sky-like nature. Nothing remains. You're still here. There's no need to do anything about the mental events. They are appearing yet empty. You don't even need to do anything about the reactions, because they're the same. They appear. Sometimes you get caught up and the story goes on. But actually, all the time, we have this sky-like nature. Are your thoughts different to mine? Are they real? Are they solid? Or are they just movement in space? You can experience thoughts anytime, but to experience this sky-like nature of mind, that's something special. Just rest there. There's nothing to be done. everything frees itself effortlessly. I hope that wasn't too dry and intellectual. No, that's enough. Okay, so I know some of you got things to do, so